Please be aware that this video briefly discusses mental health issues and suicide. If you're feeling vulnerable, this may not be the best watch for you today. And if that's the case, I've left a handy link in the description down below for some great resources. Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix, Whitney Houston. All of these people were undoubtedly talented, and they were lucky enough to be recognized for that talent. And with that came success, and with success came the ability to do the thing they love for a living, and in some cases even generate wealth. But all of these people had one thing in common. At quite an early age, they experienced death. This video is sponsored by DistroKid. Follow the VIP link in the description down below to get 7% off an already amazing price to distribute your music to the world. Now, I'm sure you've already come to the conclusion that it wasn't music that killed these people. If anything, it was fame, or at least the side effects of fame. And I'd like to discuss the relationship between music, success, and fame a little bit later in this video. But first of all, I'd like to discuss the good or potentially bad effects of music on us all as listeners. I sometimes think of music as a mind-altering substance. Let's face it, if it wasn't mind-altering, we'd have little use for it. It can make us want to dance. It can enhance our feelings of love, joy, and sadness. But there is a bit of a kind of chicken and egg question surrounding it. And this was beautifully posed by Nick Hornby in his book High Fidelity, where he asks, what came first, the music or the misery? Did I listen to music because I was miserable, or was I miserable because I listened to music? Now, I have no empirical evidence to answer that question, so everything I'm about to say is highly anecdotal. Annie Martell was John Denver's ex-wife and also a psychologist, and I once read a story about her meeting a patient for a consultation, and that patient suddenly realized that Annie was indeed John Denver's ex-wife. Now, Annie didn't necessarily feel all that comfortable about this. Firstly, she didn't want it to get in the way of the consultation, and secondly, she didn't necessarily have completely positive memories of her life with John Denver. After all, she was his ex-wife. But the patient went on to explain that they felt that John Denver's music had actually saved their life. They recalled at one point they were suicidal, and on the brink of committing suicide, suddenly on the radio came a John Denver song. And they were so moved by this music that it literally brought them back from the brink. Now, I don't know the full truth of this story, but I imagine if it's not completely true, there has been times where music has had that effect on people, and I love it for that reason. But I think if we accept that music is this powerful in some circumstances and a force for positivity, then we have to acknowledge it could also be a force for negativity. When I was in my late 20s, I had a friend who suddenly developed a medical condition, which amongst other things meant he lost the ability to walk and also started to have seizures. Now, we would hang out together, and one of the things we would do for fun is listen to music, and we had a shared passion for late 70s punk music from the UK. Pretty energetic music, and sometimes a little bit angry as well. But after a while, my friend came to me and he said, "Look, Mike, we've got to stop doing this." And I was surprised. I said, "Why? You look like you were enjoying it." And he said, "Yeah, I was. But the fact is, I'm actually feeling pretty bitter and angry about the way life has turned out for me. And I find that when I listen to that style of music, it encourages feelings of anger, and that leads to even more seizures. So that's why we stopped doing that." But it really brought home to me the effect that music can have on you mentally, and perhaps as a side effect, physically as well. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to sad or angry music or anything like that. First of all of those emotions are very valid. They're a part of our human experience. It's great to vent sometimes. But I would say do be aware that music is a mind-altering substance, and use it knowing the effects that it might have on you, and then make a choice about whether you want it to have that effect on you at the moment. Well, that's my advice anyway. Later on, I was to discover this for myself in terms of performing certain types of music. When I was a gigging musician, one of the cover songs I used to play was Creep by Radiohead. Not only a great song, but it was one of those songs in my set list which was almost guaranteed to get a good reaction from my audience. Now, people used to tell me the reason they enjoyed my performance with it so much was they really felt my passion. They could see it in my face, they could see it in my body, and they could hear it in my voice. And there's a really great reason for that. That's because I was pouring everything into that song every time I sung it. And that was because I strongly identified with the sentiment of the song. I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. And that was all fine until I didn't feel like that anymore. As my mental health kind of improved, as I felt a bit more confident about myself, as I began to see that I had a place in this world that was valuable, those lyrics didn't resonate with me so strongly, or should I say that they kind of did while I was singing them, and it took me back to feeling that way while I was performing. And that was not where I needed to go. I didn't need to go backwards, I needed to go forward. So I made a choice at that time not to sing that song anymore, and I very rarely sing it now. Now, I'm not saying again that you shouldn't play songs that make you feel this way, etc. That's a choice for you as a person and as an artist. I'm saying that I made an informed decision that at that time, that wasn't for me, that wasn't going to be good for me, and I'm glad I made that decision. I think for most of us, music starts out as pure enjoyment. Perhaps when we're a child, we hear and experience music, we love it, and then if we're lucky, we also get to make it, to become creative with it, and that is an absolute gift in life. And that's all very well until society comes along with its values and it says, enjoyment? What's all that about? You need to be successful. And there's lots of things which are identified with success. It could be notoriety, you need that. Or it could be that you need to make money out of it to be deemed as successful. And within the world of musicians, it can also become about skill level rather than emotion. So you can play faster or more complex chords, or perhaps if you're a singer, you can sing crazily outside of your human range. All of these things get kind of linked with the idea of being successful, about being noticed, about getting confirmation from your other fellow human beings. And often, before you know it, a lot of that joy has disappeared. Now, by the way, you don't have to be a famous musician for that joy to disappear. It could be that you're playing in a local cover band at the pub and you've played all of those 30 songs 1,500 times already and you're kind of over it. But hey, it pays the bills, so that's what you need to do. And that's a real shame. And that definitely happened for me. But one day I had a really simple, profound and wonderful experience. So I'm sitting one day trying to write a song, probably trying to be clever. Not much was happening. I wasn't impressing myself in any way. And for whatever reason, sitting there with my acoustic guitar, I just pluck the low E string. Bong. And suddenly I become present with it. Suddenly it's like I hear it for the first time, like I've never heard it before. The unique sound of that E string on my acoustic guitar, the vibration of the wood, and that vibration of that guitar on my torso. I suddenly became aware of things that I'd become blind to. The attack of the note, the decay of the note, the earthiness of the note were all suddenly very, very apparent to me. This is something that an absolute beginner could do. You didn't need to be a guitarist even to make this happen. No one was here to hear it or approve of it. No one was here to say whether it was a good note or a bad note. I was just there experiencing that one single simple note and being completely present with it. And it was a real breakthrough for me because I realized how privileged I was as a human being to be here with a pair of ears and have the ability to experience a musical note, the most simple thing there is in music perhaps at all. And since then, I've just grown a new appreciation for music itself, for the role that I play in it, and the experience I get to have with it. It doesn't require anyone else to say, hey, Mike, you're great, or you're not great, or whatever it is. I just have to be with it and have fun with it because I can. As a consumer of YouTube, I feel like I'm seeing a growing number of adverts which seem to be aimed at younger people, and they'll go along the lines of this plugin or this product or this service will mean that you can make a beat in no time with no music knowledge whatsoever, no practice, and within minutes you'll have this product. And the inference is that this product will make you look cool, it will get you recognition, etc., etc. I saw an advert not too long ago about a guitar course, and the guy who was promoting it was kind of like saying, you will no longer have to do all that boring practice that you had to do with the old methods. And I was just a little bit like, I loved practicing guitar when I was a teenager. I didn't think it was boring. It wasn't a chore. It's what I actually chose to do. The process of learning was just as enjoyable to me as getting the actual result. And it seems to me more and more the result is recognition and fame, more so than creating good art or enjoying the process of making music. And it concerns me that for younger people, they're continually being told fame is the goal. Not creating great music is the goal, but fame is the goal. And the most disappointing thing about that is the evidence suggests right at the beginning of this video that there's been plenty of people who have achieved this goal and have still been absolutely miserable. That's not to say that fame and recognition will make you miserable. It's just to say that it's not guaranteed to make you happy. There is no correlation. So I would encourage you, at least, to always try to get back to basics and enjoy the music you're making just for the sake of it. Because in my experience, that's what's brought me the most happiness. Now, having said all of this, music for me is still about storytelling and communication. Now, for communication, you need both the speaker and the listener as well. More than one person involved. Now, some people just use music as a kind of a therapy, and if that's what you do, awesome. But I love the idea of connecting with another human being or two via my music. And I just realized I'm going to get really salesy on you now. I'm sorry about this, but it's why I really appreciate services like DistroKid, the sponsor of this video, because these days in the modern world, it's really easy for people like me to get that music out to the kinds of places where a lot of people get the opportunity to listen to it. I personally don't care much for how much money I make out of it or how many streams I get. And, it's cheap enough anyway that doesn't really matter to me. But I do love the idea of not just having that music on my computer where no one's ever going to hear it, but getting it out there so it has a chance to communicate a message, an emotion, a story to another person. And I've mentioned in other videos that I've found that tremendously freeing as a creator of music. Once it's out there, it's done. You can't rewrite it, you can't mix it, you can't remaster it. It's there, it exists in the world, and that frees you up to start on your next creation, in my opinion, at least. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Have you gone through the same kind of phases with music that I've gone through? Is success and recognition important to you? I'm not saying there's anything intrinsically bad about that, but there's not necessarily something intrinsically good or healthy about it either. Well, that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm Mike. I hope you're well, and I'll see you in the next video.